Welcome to Rhinex Students Above and Beyond. My name is Valerie Feit, and I'm the Enrichment Coordinator at the Rhinex School District. Above and Beyond is your opportunity to meet some of the upcoming young people in our community who will one day be our leaders. Today I'm here with Jordan Julian, a 10th grade student who is on the High Honor Roll, Vice President of the sophomore class, and a member of the Student Senate. She has taken a leadership role in the development of Connect Rhinex, Rhinex High School's first For Students by Students website, and she is the high school's spokesperson for student voice in social media. Welcome, Jordan.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Having a For Student website is a wonderful idea. Can you just tell us about the website?
Right, well, Connect Rhinex is for the students and by the students, which basically means that it is an outlet for students to express their creativity as well as their views and opinions on the things that happen in the community. And so that basically just allows for the students to express themselves openly.
Many schools have newspapers. What is the difference between having a website and having a school newspaper, which we already have at the high school?
Well, the thing with the website is that because the internet is so interactive, it takes it one step further than a newspaper would. It features the basic components of a newspaper in that it has the articles that update on student news. But the difference is because it's a website, it's updated more frequently because it's more accessible than a newspaper, which would come out once a month. And it also features different kinds of media like videos of student performances as well as visual artwork. And so it has these different media components that can't be accessed in a newspaper.
And also it has a creative component. So what comprises the creative part?
The creative section really makes Connect Rhinex unique. It features different kinds of creative writing like poetry and short stories, but also comedic essays, which are kind of fun, and opinion-based pieces like that. And visual artwork like paintings or drawings by the students that can be uploaded onto the website.
It has another special feature that you've told me about called College Connect. What is College Connect?
College Connection is this really great idea that basically provides the contact information of Rhinex graduates, and it lists what colleges they attend. And so Rhinex students that are applying for colleges can contact the graduates and get an understanding of what the college experience is like. And it's really great because they are Rhinex graduates, so they went through the same things in high school and are more equipped to answer the specific questions of the students.
Well, it sounds like the kind of idea that any school would want, and I would like to just go back and hear about the history and how it started and how the idea generated from the students.
The website idea was initially developed by Russell Sonnenclair, who graduated last year. And he approached me with the idea. And at first I was just a content contributor for the website because I had individually been interested in journalism. So I was writing articles, but I didn't emerge in a leadership position until this year when Russell passed on the authority to me and a co-leader, Mallory Shaner, who's also a sophomore at Rhinex High School. And what basically got me started was just writing articles, but then eventually I emerged as an educator on the different safety precautions that you have to take when you're working a website.
That's an interesting topic that must have come up after you approached Dr. Barbara Ferraro, who's your principal. So you went to Dr. Ferraro, and how did that go?
When we initially approached Dr. Ferraro with the concept, she was very supportive of it, and she understood why it would be a great contribution to the school. However, she also had apprehensions because with the internet, you hear about all of these different risks that could come from using it, and internet abuse has become a more prevalent issue. And so there are certain responsibilities that the students would have to assume, and that's a lot of responsibility for a school official to place in the hands of the students.
And the problems that we hear about are usually bullying or sort of libel.
Exactly.
Like
cyberbullying is a major issue. Because the internet is so accessible all the time, it's so easy for something to go viral within such a short period of time. And that could include any sort of information that targets a specific group of people or individual. And so cyberbullying can be spread so easily, and you have to worry about that when you're working with an internet.
Well, you must have been aware initially that those issues could come up, so it's understandable that Dr. Ferrara was apprehensive, but there must be safeguards in the school. Are there policies that are already in existence?
Our school has in place an acceptable use policy, like most high schools do, and that acceptable use policy covers basic liabilities by parents or students or even employees with regard to the content that's accessed on school computers as well as what's created on school computers. However, these are fairly general, and the concept of a student website is a rather new endeavor, and so there isn't policy that specifically addresses how you would go about starting a student website in a safe way.
There are two components that you've mentioned, one being the writing, which I can understand you want to be very careful about what goes up,
Right.
but also photographs and video. What would be the issue with photographs, for example?
Well, the interesting thing about photographs that I didn't realize when I first got involved in the website is that it's quite a tedious process to put photos up, because when you have to analyze all of the photos that you want to put on the website and pick out the students that are in the pictures, and then make sure that they have their acceptable use policies signed by themselves and guardians, because that gives them permission to have their photos on the internet. Because when you are dealing with the internet, you have to look at the worst case scenario, and there could be risk factors legally to having a picture of a student on the internet.
Like?
For example, if in the most severe case, if there was a family situation in which a student needed their identity to be protected and their location to be protected, if they didn't have permission to have their photo on the website, then where they attend school could be revealed to potentially a parent that they don't want to know where they're located. And then there's obviously the more common reason, which is that some parents might just not want their students to be accessed on the internet.
So you have to be very careful with that. There must be precedent, and I'm going to take you back to the beginning of really what constitutes student voice. How would you describe student voice?
I feel that student voice is so important, especially as education is becoming a more independent thing, and so much more is expected from students. They're expected to be able to independently develop their own education, and so if they're going to be expected to be so independent, they should be able to freely express their views and opinions through student voice.
And I would think also that in a situation with increasing independence that there would be an involvement with policy development.
Exactly. I've been working in developing the policy of internet usage at my school, and that's definitely helped me get involved in my own educational process, and it's helped me make student voice a more accessible thing to everybody, because everybody deserves to express themselves.
Wow, that's really wonderful. I can see why you're very articulate. Let's go back to the origins of student voice. There's been some very famous cases that have gone all the way up to the Supreme Court. Can you just share the start of this?
Well, the issue of student voice was most originally recognized by the Supreme Court in 1969 when the case of Tinker versus the Des Moines School District came to be. And that case basically originated around a group of high school students who wanted to wear black armbands to express their views on the war in Vietnam. And this action is protected by the First Amendment right of the freedom of expression.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they wore these armbands, it caused not any sort of violence in the school, but there was still some tension because it was a controversial issue. And that made the school officials uncomfortable, so they banned the wearing of the armbands and suspended any students who were seen wearing it. And the students felt that this violated their rights.
In the case of the Tinker, I think that's the popular way to describe it, they just call it Tinker case.
Yeah.
There were some major findings that came from the court. What was the major finding that they kind of evolved from that case?
Right, well, the emphasis of Tinker was that students don't shed their First Amendment rights when they enter the school gate. And so basically, the school doesn't have the right to take away their freedoms to expression. And therefore, the initial outcome was that the school couldn't suspend, in this particular case, their right to wear the armbands unless they could demonstrate that it was disrupting the rights of the other students at the school.
When you talk about school, though, to bring this forward a bit, in 1969, the definition of a school day was much more limited. I mean, you knew when students arrived, when they had lunch,
Right.
and when they left. Is that still the case? I mean, you're dealing with the internet.
Well, the school day was definitely more clearly defined in 1969 because there were the clearly established school hours. However, when you're working with something like the internet, it's available 24/7. And so you can't always expect the school to monitor what's going on. And there's a sort of gray area to what actually constitutes a school day, because something could be put up in the evening when the students aren't actually at school, but it's still on the school website. And it could go viral before the school officials get the chance to see it during the actual school day. So there's this sort of gray area as to what the school day actually is by today's standards.
Very interesting. Subsequent to Tinker, there must be other issues in other cases. I mean, that's a long time ago. What's happened subsequently?
More recently, there was the case of the Hazelwood School District versus Kuhlmeyer, and that was in 1988. And that case dealt with censorship of a school newspaper. And the school newspaper wanted to publish an article that focused on teen pregnancy, which was an issue that was very relevant to them at the time, and it was important to them. However, the school banned the article because they deemed it inappropriate to be in a school-sponsored publication. And from that, the issue of school-sponsored versus a non-school-sponsored publication really came to define censorship.
What is the difference between school-sponsored and non-school-sponsored in a legal sense?
Right, well, the criteria for school-sponsored versus non-school-sponsored would be if you have to question whether the school lends its resources to the publication or a faculty member from the school is advising the publication. And that's pretty much the ground rule for whether it's school-sponsored. But also if you take into account whether it is a part of the curriculum of the school, and that's another criteria for it being school-sponsored, and if it's designed to impart knowledge to the students. And so if it possesses those qualities, then the school sponsors the publication and under Hazelwood therefore retains the right to censor it if they can demonstrate that it actually is, if the censorship has educational purposes.
And probably, you know, in a situation like the one that you're dealing with, there's also faculty advisement that goes with that. So the faculty advisor would be, I don't know, it would be reviewing.
Exactly. One of the requirements of starting the website was that we do have a faculty to oversee the project. But the faculty member, while it does review the work that is put on the website, is not, that's where it kind of becomes unclear because the faculty member does review the work, so that technically makes it a school-sponsored forum, but it is primarily produced by the students with the intentions of being student-sponsored. And so that kind of conflicts with the faculty advisement.
It seems just as, in considering what you're saying, that there is probably also an issue with forum that at the time, even in 1988, the idea that there was a school newspaper would be a forum, but there must be some sort of forum analysis at this point that is a little bit different. How does forum analysis work?
The key aspect of Hazelwood was that they didn't really have clearly analyzed forums, and so when they were dealing with what to call the school newspaper, they had to analyze the different kinds of forums that would be granted First Amendment rights to the freedom of expression. So the one that has the most strong rights to freedom of expression and other First Amendment rights would be a public forum, which doesn't really pertain to a school setting because a public forum would be just that in a street or like a town square that the people have the right to express their opinions openly in an uncensored way, and that would be a public forum. But what you see more often in a school setting would be a designated or a limited forum. And this entails that it is a forum that has the purpose of being expressive and is set out to impart certain views, and so it's actually clearly established, whereas a public forum would just be any sort of general expression of opinions. And then that also retains a decent amount of First Amendment protection. And then there's a non-public forum, which has limited First Amendment protection and the most censorship abilities, and that would just be a private forum that's not openly established to express opinions.
So in your case, it would be a limited or designated
Right.
forum. In that sense, you have the advisement and the school's involvement. How does that work at Rhinebeck? Were you sort of pleased that you had that sort of forum available, or was that a difficult part for you? Did you want to have more freedom? Do you feel comfortable with it?
I think that it's definitely a comfortable setup because what we have now is a very significant amount of freedom, because when the staff members of the website have an idea for something that they want to create, they run it by myself or Mallory Shaner, my co-leader, and then they can go work on it, and the initial idea just needs to be run by myself or Mallory, and that's a nice level of freedom because we have the right to make the decisions as to what the staff members can work on. And then once I review it to make sure that it's grammatically sound and factually sound, then it would go on to a faculty advisor. So there's still those levels between myself and the other students that work on the project before it actually goes to the faculty. So it's a nice amount of freedom to have, and it still ensures that it's a safe project.
And how do students get on? Do they use passwords, or?
That was another big policy requirement that needed to be put into place. The website is password protected, and to make sure that it can only be accessed by students, the student needs to log in with their school ID number. And this is, while it might seem like overly cautionary, it's necessary because it allows that the website is only accessible to the students. And the great part about it is that once you log on, the computer remembers that you logged on, so you only need to log on for the first time, and it still retains that accessibility that makes the internet so great.
And also, I'm sure kids like it when it's quick.
Yeah, exactly.
Get right on there. This has obviously been quite a study for you, not maybe what you expected, but your interest in journalism goes back quite far.
Right.
And can you just tell us what kind of writing you enjoy?
When I initially began writing, for me it was creative writing actually, and it's come such a long way since my interest in creative writing was first sparked, because I realized that I also found the concept of expository writing interesting, and I first approached expository writing when I actually participated in an essay writing contest. And expository writing I like a lot because it still has that creativity that creative writing has, and it's not as structured as straight out factual writing, but you still are getting across a point that is educational and serves a purpose. And so I wrote for the essay contest, and then right about then is when Russell approached me, and I decided that it would be the perfect opportunity to test out journalism, and so I would write articles on different school events, and that's basically how I got interested in journalism.
Wow. And when you're doing this, obviously you have to make a distinction with students. Do you have to explain these things? I mean, you've obviously put a lot of work into it. Do you have to explain this to students who want to be contributors?
The education aspect of it became a large part of my experience with the website. When I first began, I never anticipated that I would emerge in a leadership position, but as I began analyzing the differences between creative writing and expository writing, and we began kind of establishing policy, I realized that I need to get it out there, everything that goes into a project like a website. And so I began doing presentations to the students at my school that would first establish the different kinds of writing that can be found on the website and how clearly define the differences are, and also the responsibilities of contributing such content to the website.
In doing this, you've also moved beyond just the writing and running the website. You've decided to start your own television show, and very happily under the aegis of LMC-TV. Who are you working with?
I've been working with Christina Carino-Forrest and Dina Shoemaker, as well as Remy Lipvin, who's the producer and director of Rhineck Students and also an 11th grader at Rhineck. And they've been so helpful because this medium of television journalism, while I've been interested and involved in the journalism aspect of it, the television side is completely new to me, and the production of actually the work behind a TV show. It's a complete learning experience for me, and it's really interesting, and they've been so helpful throughout that.
Well, tell us the name of your show and what it's about.
The premise for the show, it's called FYI, for your information. It's about social issues that are of interest to America's teens, and the purpose of it is to educate young people like myself on relevant social issues, because I feel like it's so important for teenagers to be educated on what's going on. Like I discussed earlier about the importance of student voice. Students have all sorts of opinions that they need to express. However, if they're not educated properly, then they don't have the, they aren't as, I guess, listened to, they aren't as heard on their opinions. So it's important to establish that level of education.
And it validates your voice if you know what you're
Exactly.
talking about. What are you doing for your first show?
The topic for the first episode will be internet safety, because it has been something that's become such a prevalent part of my life. And I think that it's one of those examples of something where students will think, oh, well, it's so great that we have this website where we can just say whatever we want, and it's by us and it's for us. But they don't really realize the legal background behind it and all of the risks behind it. So I'm choosing to focus on that, to kind of put it out there that all of this work goes into so that they can have their voice.
And are you going to do interviews?
The format for the show will be interviews within the framework of 3 basic questions that address the issues of internet safety. But I'll be hearing from the principal of my high school, Dr. Barbara Ferraro, as well as a district attorney to get the legal standpoint, and some students, so that if they're answering the same questions, we kind of get all of the different viewpoints, and it should be a great way to show how internet is integrated into schools.
Your interest in getting this word out, it goes even further, I know, because you've got some very exciting summer plans. What are you going to do in the summer that extends your interest?
For my summer plans, as I've been working with television journalism, I find that I really like being able to convey what I feel, like the information that I've been investigating in person, because I feel like I can establish a greater connection. So over the summer, I'm going to continue to develop this interest in television journalism by attending a program at the New York Film Academy that is a week-long program in which I'll get to work on a short little segment of broadcast journalism. So hopefully, hearing from experts, I'll be able to take all of this new knowledge and then apply it to my developments in my own television show.
And you're going to continue to work with LMC-TV next year?
Yeah.
And develop your show and come up with some other topics that you are going to be interested in, other kids will be interested in as well. Do you see this as a future for you in the longer term?
In a long-term scale, I really think that when I work with television journalism, I feel like I'm doing something important, and that I'm personally connecting with people and not only educating them on these important social issues, but also enforcing why it's so important for them to know that. And it's definitely something that I'd like to continue to investigate and see where I fit into that.
We don't have much time left, so I'm going to ask you a final question. For any of our viewers who are watching who might be at other high schools or might want to do something like this, what would be your advice?
Well, My advice would be to establish yourself as a responsible leader and a responsible spokesperson for something as important as student voice. And so in order to do so, you need to find the balance between being an authority figure but also being respectful to authority figures. So you need to have sort of the etiquette of leadership, in that you have to be polite to those authority figures but also maintain your own confidence in what you have to say.
And know what's worth sticking up for.
Right, exactly. You have to know what is worth defending, and you have to be proud of what it is that you're defending in order to make it worthwhile.
Well, you've convinced me. I have absolutely no doubt that you're going to be extremely successful in FYI, and it's for your information, and it's social issues of interest to America's teens.
Right.
And that's going to be aired for the first time this spring. And so you're working on that show now.
Mm-hmm.
And then moving forward into the summer and next year, and I'm sure our audience is going to be excited to see you develop as a journalist.
Right.
And I certainly will be. Well, thank you, Jordan, and that is our show for now. To see previous episodes of Rhinex Students Above and Beyond, you can go to LMC-TV's website, click Videos on Demand, Single and Series Programming, and then Above and Beyond. I want to thank our producer and director, Remy Litvin, an 11th grader at Rhinex High School, the LMC-TV staff, and our wonderful volunteer crew. My name is Valerie Feit, and please join us again when we look at another student who goes above and beyond. Thank you for watching.